Good evening, everyone. Hello, welcome to our first installment of the 2025 Phosphorescence Contemporary Poetry Series produced by the Emily Dickinson Museum. It's hard to believe, but this program is now in its fifth year, and it just keeps bringing us some of the most exciting contemporary poets that we know. We are so excited to hear from poets this season who have caught the spark of Emily Dickinson's own phosphorescent light. My name is Brooke Steinhauser. I'm Senior Director of Programs at the Emily Dickinson Museum, and I'm delighted to be here with you all. Before we begin tonight's reading, I have some people I want to thank. So each year, we create a lineup of between 15 and 18 poets who are featured in our Phosphorescence Poetry Series. And this happens through a painstaking curatorial process that begins first with a call for submissions, followed by weeks of reading and scoring by our program team and guest judges, and finally group deliberation to produce a lineup that is balanced in all the ways that we strive for with this program. And this year we were thrilled to receive over 160 submissions, which is our highest number yet. We were thrilled and sort of bowled over by that number, which is very, very exciting. And so the first people that I want to thank are all of those poets who submitted, whether it was in groups or individually, to be part of this series. We were so deeply honored to receive your work. And then I want to thank the guest judges who helped to make those tough choices amidst so much talent. So Scout Turkel is a guide at the Emily Dickinson Museum and a poetry MFA graduate from the University of Massachusetts, who was one of our guest scorers this year, guest judges. And Stephanie Choi, who is a phenomenal poet who featured in our final Phosphorescence of the season last year, was another guest judge. And thank you both so much. And then finally, a very enormous amount of administrative work goes into these processes. And I want to thank the museum's program coordinator, my wonderful colleague, Anna Plummer, who has kept all of these plates spinning in addition to helping to make those challenging choices and select this year's lineup. Anna, feel free if you would like to poke your head in and say hello. Anna's here tonight behind the curtain. And of course, a big thank you to all of you who are joining us now. We're really, really thrilled to be with you. So for tonight's program, I want to encourage you to use the chat feature in your Zoom app as you are currently doing. You're doing a great job. And you can use that to share your affirmations and words of encouragement as the poets read their work. And right now, you are chiming in to tell us where you're coming from. So I'm going to take a quick peek because I'm seeing Orlando, Florida, Cleveland. We've got Cambridge, Mass. is in the house, South Dakota, South Carolina, Michigan. This is a really, really great mix. Indiana, New Jersey, Missouri. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Tonight's readings will be followed by a Q&A, and I'll be looking for your questions in the typed Q&A feature so that we can pose them to the poets tonight after their readings. If you can look for it, there is in your Zoom toolbar a Q&A bubble that you can click on to add your question to that space. And you can do that at any point during the program tonight, and we'll keep an eye on it. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce our poets to you. First up, we will hear from Carlene Kucharczyk, who's coming to us from Woodstock, Vermont this evening. Her debut collection, Strange Hymn, is the winner of the Juniper Prize for a first book of poems and will be published by the University of Massachusetts Press in April, that's this month. Very, very exciting. And she's the recipient of a creation grant from the Vermont Arts Council, and her work has been published in journals such as Poetry Northwest, Tupelo Quarterly, Green Mountains Review, Conduit, Mid-American Review, and Permafrost Magazine. It's been nominated for a Pushcart Prize. She was the Henry David Thoreau Fellow at the Vermont Studio Center, where she worked for 2 years in the writing program and was the writer in residence at the Carl Sandburg Home National Historic Site. She has received support from the Center for Book Arts Fine Press Seminar and the Frost Place Poetry Seminar. She holds an MFA from North Carolina State University, where she also taught creative and expository writing. And she lives in Vermont, where she works as an administrative assistant in the English and Creative Writing Department at Dartmouth College. Thank you, Carlene. We're so glad to be here with you. Then we're going to hear from Avia, who is coming to us From New York City, Avia Tadmor is the author of the poetry collection Song in Tammuz, winner of the Tupelo Press International Berkshire Prize, forthcoming next year. Her poems appear or are forthcoming in Best New Poets, The New Republic, New England Review, Prairie Schooner, Iowa Review, and elsewhere. Via's poetry received support from Yaddo, the Rona Jaffe Foundation, Breadloaf Writers Workshop, the Vermont Studio Center, the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, and the Adroit Journal's Gregory Janikian Scholars Program. Previously, she's taught writing at Columbia University, where she directed the Columbia Artist Teachers Program, promoting no-cost arts education in schools and community organizations in New York City. Currently, she's a clinical assistant professor in the expository writing program at New York University. Born in Jerusalem, she now lives in New York. Thanks, Avia. Then we're going to hear, finally, last but certainly not least, from the wonderful Silvia Bonilla, who is coming to us from Queens, New York. Silvia was born and raised in South America. She received an MFA in poetry from the New School. She is the author of a chapbook called An Animal Startled by the Mechanisms of Life, which came out in 2024, and Town Elves, forthcoming from Arizona University Press. Her work has been featured in Blackbird, Green Mountains Review, Cream City Review, Read, Cimarron Review, among others. And she's received support from Kenyon Writers Workshop, the Saltonstall Foundation, Swanee Writers Conference, Community of Writers, Napa Valley, the Frost Place, Colgate Writers Workshop, and the Postgraduate Conference at the Vermont College of Fine Arts. You all have a lot of really wonderful credentials. We're so excited to hear from you. Thank you again for being with us, and over to you, Carlene.
Thank you so much, Brooke, for those introductions, and thank you to you and Anna and the wonderful Emily Dickinson Museum for hosting this series and for inviting us, and to Silvia and Avia for reading tonight. And thank you all for being here. I'm gonna start with the first poem in the book, Church. Body, go reverently, submerged in love. Little human cathedral. All this to be wholly occupied with the singing. On beholding the beloved's rotting body, I think it is beautiful that Emerson dug his wife out of the grave a year and 2 months after she died just to see how she was making out. Perhaps I would have liked to marry Emerson. This is not the first time I have thought this. I think I would do well with a staunch moralist type, unless, of course, I disagreed, which I likely often would. I do not really like beards anyway. But now I am looking at a picture of Emerson, and it seems he had less of a beard and more of just weird facial hair. I do not know what this particular type is called. I do not like it either. Perhaps I was thinking of Thoreau. I am always thinking of Thoreau. But back to Emerson's wife. Maybe he thought she was caught somewhere between the skeleton and the soul. She was only 20 years old. Who knows? I would not mind. Find it all out. Dig, if you have to. Song. The other things of earth, okay. I like the thing that is your body, buried now in deathless sleep, sunken in midnight quiet. I am awake in wonder of what rows its dreamboats through your mind, what floating world drifts away. But what world is this in which you ever die? Hours haunted by the ringing of church bells, flocks of birds in wild whorls, the sounds of spring unwrapping, streets lamplit. If I could be with you, the whole way singing. Do not hold the birds. Do not hold the birds. Do not make little homes of your hands. Do not ache into a man. He will be silent until spring, when love again blasts through the sodden heart. It is not good to bury all the bones in the yard. It is not good to keep all one's favorite books on the shelf. Give both hands to the birds. Lend them. And I'm going to read from now. There's a longer piece in the book called Self-Portrait Through Glass, and I'm going to read some sections of that. She. Oh, and there are also some quotes from Emily Dickinson within this. So some of you may definitely recognize those. She, she is me, so she cannot be defined by thee, me. Someone else must judge this one's identity. Haha, this time not me. I hope they judge tenderly of me. B. Maybe when one unattaches from the self, one is free to be birds flying, be the enormous movements of the snow, be rain, be love. Maybe there is also an opportunity to be wood smoke passed from fire, now dangling in hair that sweeps over shower water, be wind rising, be the cracking sheets of ice, be all the good around you, go unnoticed, submit to everything, be the brilliant gales of flight, be the all-night torches of young love, be staid love's constancy and promise, be the shadows that scare you, don't turn from them in the dark, be God, be breath, be the intensity of longing, be trees, yes, be the trees, pines, oaks, willows swaying, be dark water hitting the shore, be the turtles that come out at night, guide themselves to the ocean, then never see each other again. Be each wind that swoop to kiss you, be images classical and grand, be bridges, be cathedrals, be the sound of trains, be rain, be love. Anything one can be after getting rid of the burden of the self, not straight death, he, and ego death per se, a ridding of that uncertain certainty, then no one as expansive as thee, and then with Borges one can sing an ecstasy of the nothingness of personality. Show me how expansive can thee be. I and thou. In bed I try to feel thou come into me. Is this thou then me? Thou infinite white primordial being? Why do I invite this thou to me? Is he even larger than me? Maybe me, she, is just as large as he. Dare we larger than he? Thou is certainly not as free as me. We, shh. My business is to sing. What do I sing of? Of course, me. Will I sing now? Yes, indeed. How? Ecstatically. Self-portrait singing. My calves are singing, eyes, shoulders, elbows, blood rivering through singing. I want to be uncompromising. I want to be the most uncompromising woman in the world. What I want is uncompromised singing. In me also is the animal that glistens and rushes toward us, wolf in my ear, wolf at my side, wolf on my back, winter sweeping howls, snow here already, singing. Night, song of many owls lifting, wind burns into me, my hands numb are singing, one sleeping the shadow part, the part dark and smart, goes on singing its own strange song. The lyrics are, I am part of you too. Lower yourself into the well, then pull yourself back up. All my life I've been singing. Of course you cannot always hear my song. Sometimes the lights and music too go out. I am a dark house. But there, beating below in the basement is a bright-winged bird that lives and wants to get out. Flapping in my chest now. Out of my throat flies the bird fully loaded with song. I turn to watch the black speck in the distance, still singing. One day I'll die alone singing. You too, keep working on your song. When I'm afraid singing, the lyrics are, let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Song of naming things, beauty, terror, beauty, terror, beauty, terror. Would it all fit in? I want you to sing yourself into me. Sing your best song, the one you'd like to hear. I'll listen. The lyrics are, it is rare that we should be here. It is rare that we should have met. The lyrics are, I want us to be invested in what is good for one another. The lyrics are, I am grateful to have heard your song. I want to stay with you all night singing. I can hear your bones singing, breath, your eyes, they know so many songs. I want to learn them all. My voice has many moods. Sometimes it is not so much my voice as someone's who is hovering slightly above me, someone I am reaching for. Don't mistake my singing. You have your own song. My favorite thing about you was that night you were singing what sounded like a hymn. Where did that come from? It was then I knew you could be much more than you were. After I'm gone, don't bury my body. Burn it and turn it into song. Gleam. How much gleaming is possible? I don't know. See how much you can do while you are here. Say, we'll gleam and understand. We'll gleam and understand. We'll gleam and understand. Stir. I can see it streaming from you now. It is coming off your teeth and heading toward the rest of the world. It wants to gather with the rest of the light. And that will gleam and understand stir is Emily Dickinson written on an envelope, which I love so much, and has a nice little bracket before the stir that um, adds to the mystery of it. Thank you all for listening and being here. And now we will hear from Avia.
Carlene, what are you doing to us over Zoom? I will shamelessly plug Carlene's book because I've been waiting for it so many months in the mail. And now that it arrived, I've had to pretend reading it that I read it in your voice in my mind, but it's such a pleasure and a thrill to hear your voice reading it. Um, so thank you, Carlene. Thank you, Silvia. Thank you, Brooke and Anna and the Emily Dickinson Museum staff. And thank you, viewers and listeners. Um, I'll read 5 poems. And I'll start with Exodus Song. That is also the first poem in my forthcoming book. Exodus Song. When the drowning comes, know, there are still horses, loose and alone in the old country, their eyes flipped upwards, the horseshoes snapping one after the other and shooting into the great black night like Delilah's headlong blades. When the drowning comes, know, the farrier will rebuild his shop, sell toys or trinkets on an avenue decked on both sides, he would notice, with unfamiliar flags. But the horses, they will be running and running until they are no longer horses. The bare hooves will lift and lash like decades, dusting a country with wet black ash. Remember it even here, underwater, the warm rush of blood, the old heart, it's pulling and plunging the way a woman's gullet pulses the Psalms. Remember the boy watching his teacher on fire, how her body relights the city's ghost-spun square. A girl already in her new country reads Dostoevsky in English. Her hair smells of mothballs and basements, walls discolored with rain. She moves her pen in the margins, a tongue not yet her own. Have I been grateful here? Was I driven by purpose? And were these always my own thoughts regarding the afterlife? Her pen is a stronghold. a lighthouse flickering late in July. Did I make it a home? Did my brother feel pain? All my life I am trying, Lord, not to inscribe your full name. This next one is concerned with the slippage between tongues. And in my case, it's a slippage between Hebrew and English, the two tongues I speak. And I'm thinking about the possibilities and the agency to inquire what it means to be one thing or another, a woman or man or a person with faith or without faith. And the larger questions this spurs into. In the tongue I was born to, the word for husband means owner. For wife means woman, and woman, man housed with God, which is to say, I hear him some mornings, stirring among the leaves in the garden, restless as every animal gone too long unsatisfied. Which is to say, we can't always localize anguish, but I know the smell of semen, how it wafts from the carob tree, pods packed with brown pulp and seeds. I know what he tells me. Chemists would sell the ripe fruit to singers so their voices would be soothed, by which he meant some of me could learn to like it. Some of me is thinking of war women, how they press vinegar rags into wounds to survive them. Some of me says survival is seeing only the peak of our wake, him strangely angled and high-pitched, me in my sudden hunger, the old glass factory swarming with gulls, one of us quick, the other one quicker, both of us stunned as all dying things by desire fading out unevenly, which is to ask how holy is holy. How can I be a man housed with God when this union, this tongue, this poem even has failed me? What good are the gulls? Is the man? Are the words? Are the singers? Their gullets this morning unhousing in me. This next one I was not going to read, but I quickly shuffled it into the bunch after hearing Carlene's self-portrait. This is also a self-portrait in Virginia, facing east. I shut the screen door and descend the stairs from my studio. Limp-legged, a black wasp continues to cling to the mesh. 5 days she has not moved. Last night, the resident writers were doing shots of tequila and talking about this country's depression, our students' depression, and how it differs from our own. Maybe we're supposed to show it less, Lara said, which made me think about the Latin root deprimere, how it means to press down, though for me it's been more the sensation of being untethered. The pounds I've been dropping all year, slick oil from a skillet, unstoppable panic attacks like mid-sea vertigo. Now I wake up and can't understand how is it already June. Last week, the southern storms tore down 2 aspens, but this morning the world seems more legible, even if it is not. I cross the lawn, half mud, half meadow, the barn, weather vanes rustling east and east and east. I'm 35. I've come here pill-stuffed, unchildrened. When I face east, all I see is a row of paint buckets where the groundkeeper is growing her weed under a camo tarp. I don't see her at first, but she's gesturing, come on over. She has beers and she offers to show me her woodshop. It was the old stable. The garden too, if I want. I don't know why I feel like crying when we pass the tidy beds with endive, rutabagas, tomatoes, and beets bursting with such a disquieting purple. I think of placentas, radishes so libidinous that even this minute I think of birth. When my husband calls to tell me the new coffee machine arrived, I feel ashamed. How clearly I know I never want to leave. Artists come and go, she says, but only someone as rootless as me would be good to actually live here. She straightens a fallen tomato vine like pulling a hair from a pillow, presses down the trellis, the soil around it, to fix what the storm had done. From up close, she looks like she's pushing 60. I'm not sure why she invited me over, or why when she says no money, no children, no church, it sounds like a tease or a humble brag. I pass my beer bottle back and forth in my hand, nervous clink on its torso with my wedding ring. It's hot. I don't always trust my choices. And I should say that that one was written at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, where all artists go to be in complete isolation and wonder about what it means to make art and how can we even start balancing that with all the non-artist endeavors that are fueled by being an artist, but not necessarily directly put words on the page. It's impossible for me to be in this, to read in this series without invoking Lucy Brock-Broido, my beloved poetry teacher and mentor, who introduced me to Emily Dickinson's poetry. And I'm thinking of Lucy telling us, her students, that Marie Howe, the amazing poet, taught her how to read Emily Dickinson. And so reading this poem, I really want to invoke Lucy alongside Emily Dickinson, and in gratitude to Marie Howe, and think about women poets being in creative friendships with each other, mentorship between women poets, as well as staying in this world through our art. Lucy, last summer in Cambridge, I biked to your grave. Brackish breeze, my sweat rubbing against someone else's on the rental bike. I thought of the rooibos red smock you bestowed me, said it paired well with my heelhood. Those years I did tread, high-booted, sure-footed, daily seduced or seducing someone through the linoleum corridors of Dodge Hall. You'd say, delete, not dilute, and speak of how spooky the path we all tread, murmurs and apparitions along it, this practice of solitudes reaching for common solace. 5 years and still I feel the warmth of your fire, brass candelabra clenched against a nightgown, high-necked and rustling in that Victorian way. How high your candles lit and carried us through the cat-slick dark. Carry us still toward what words we find in ourselves. On equinoctials, you'd gather us close, right toward the terrible crystals. Yes, it was spooky to be alive and sailing together in language. Even more spooky, the rhapsodic rattle of language that keeps you here. And I will end with a love poem, because why not? Nothing promised. You drag the boat across the tall grass, shake out the black snakes that made a provisional home under the bow through the length of winter. The rope undone for the first time in months, it slews behind you through dirt, then shallow water. A thin trail that follows you deeper into the afternoon, submits to the pull of you or perhaps the pull of the other shore. So sure you are in your solitude, and I am startled to sit here, witness it. How smooth is your sailing away, this measured but steady drifting under pink penumbral light. When we first met, you portioned your stories, or they came brash, a light hour's unpredictable beam, resolving to muteness the year your father could no longer hear you, then woodwork, then a decade of travel, Tulum, the Mont Blanc, where the 5'2" French guide hauled you out of a crevasse, the Norwegian girl you met at a bar in Cambodia, who followed you back, wanting to show you the ring on her labia, her Janis Joplin tattoo. I follow you now with my late summer eyes. Why do I love watching you like that, cruising away from me? As if you are teaching me something about love and distance. Two red-tailed hawks surrender their shadows to the thicket of spruces. You stare up, then past your left shoulder. I think at me. The wind tugs at every boat in our world. A hushed push and pull, a measure of faith travels the distance between us, buoyant as day, thin as light. Thank you so much. And I'll pass this on to Silvia.
And Silvia, you do have to unmute yourself.
Right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Carlene, for making me part of this. I'm very excited to be here. Doesn't show, but I am. I'm going to read from my chapbook. I'm going to read 3 poems from there and then some poems from my manuscript soon-to-be book next year. So here we are. Mother. She braids the hair sadly, quiet, often sad. Another day shows a calm full of her. 5 a.m. I'm inside sleep. She serves eggs on bread on china plates from Peru. Kitchen drawer slam, white candle, fish mouthed, lips mumble a prayer, brown eyes, black eyeliner, eyebrows furrow. Won't return, she's blurred, musk smell. And what remains? I'm in this room minus furniture, the attic window of a house minus light, minus the boy turned man on a blue pipe, and sweat that won't quick. I'm in this wise adventure, not aching. I turn toward thin wings of smoke, latching to his face, as the feral horse of a weather vane overturns, eye to rusted eye. Anatomy of thoughts. Each tenant they trample over who's to blame for the nostalgia in the mind. Like a garden of herbs, this one is good for this, and that one will fix that. Thoughts walking at all hours, audible and well-spoken, with lips gone drunk on maker's mark. They had taken bad habits bedside, borrow and live on trust. Crowded the back of the eyes with a memory, the front with a picture, and this isn't how you meant a mind that has been muted. The mind that sees a tree and nestles. For love, we all go there. And now from my I'm gonna read the starting poem of my new book, La Bahía, Guayaquil. In the morning, Irene, Matilde, and I flocked to the sound of opening bells. There's salt and blood in the breathing holes of fish, and a bubble like a word caught in the last breath before death. All signs fell fresh at the market. We come early on our way to school. I inhaled the rusty smell of pig's blood and washed the heart under the knife. I shift my eyes to the sunflower stand. Quick, make it quick. Promise to never eat one of your kind. We walked the dark corners stand by stand filled with the world's gifts. Lipsticks from Spain, brass from Colombia, and coal will burn the tips off to make even darker cat eyes. We hold our purses to armpits. Not Matilde, who keeps a monedero in her bra and a cigarette on her lips. She pokes the animals as if to wake them up, cover the tuna's eyes. They're too revealing of his suffering. She kisses the boar feet, Your Excellence, and bows. On freshness, only the skin can testify. We stroll and dream of the exciting lives playing out outside this country. Bleaching cream gets pulled from the shelf, and Matilde holds it to her face and laughs. Her coarse laugh. Her coarse laugh is a wing with danger in it. Someone sprays perfume, and the mist swirls inside the cone of light, fluttering, filtering from holes in the roof. At night, the quietness of a startled city. Our wishes rest on beds spritz with boiled lavender. The world turns into a departing ship. Sonia on how to fool a wolf. In the end, I'm still young and learning where to unfold. I enter his house when the afternoon wavers. A pigtail girl never made holly. He feels my knee and I drop my eyes, point to a book and drift to the room, untouched but watch. The threshold is the next room. He's by your side again, stuttering as if something caught in the vacuum, in the vacuum just before the red rock on his tongue, and I do not fall in love. In the late 80s, 400,000 Ecuadorians migrated to the United States, and not one bird. We love our vulture, the Andean condor, 33 pounds, massive black bird with white wings, bald red head, male yellow eyes, who waits in the whiteness of mountain tops. And what do you come here for? For the lie. I think I'm gonna read two more. Boneheart. We take shelter in dead cows and lift ourselves with hooks to keep out of sight. At checkpoints, our dangling bodies hold legs to chest as instructed to avoid detention. All language snuffed out by the blue perch of meat. It is miraculous. It's a miraculous thing to be wrapped in it. After we pass, relief rustles the epidermis enough to warn us for some time. Who train our bodies for this? Poverty is violence. We know the look of dead things behind pin drapes and how to make history in one day. We bent at the knees to kiss our children's faces. Little outside sonnet. Little outside sonnet, you are the terrible hour, what provokes the disaster in my veins. You what shadows in place of the window. These clouds are giant eyes upon roofs across a field. I become my own threatening flow of sadness as your orange hair light grows, impatient, mouthy. I'm using these lips as barriers to the tongue's dangerous landscapes, the wizard birds in use to describe you. Convince an animal races through me as well, the wood mask that covers you hides the door. And your hard chest opens to the knock of a beak, reminding me of the shivering act of happiness, the momentary scaffolding upon the soul, rows of infinitives, because there is delight in loss. And two more. Beauty in the Dead. Photos of deceased family hung in Irene's living room, the dead and their rosaries overhanging their fingers like clipped art. Grandparents, drum boy, infant, young man in military attire. All who enter the mysterious wall of heavens will be greeted by angels, reads a plaque under the pictures. I want my grandma in a white satin dress, her gray streak hair pulled back. I'm thinking she will want more of the terrestrial, more color in her lips and on her nails. None of the human suffering visible, only a divine tale. And this is the last one. Strong goal. Life flows a football field on television. Strangers to Thanksgiving, our first holiday, the rite of passage feels mundane. Men watch American football. Football, they say. Not knowing they call a goal. Gold shirts on the field where a coiled gold sun times its own setting. Call out between the lips the accent ones. We are here. We buy back some dignity. Pearl shade coral plays, fake heirlooms. We are in a new state of affection. New sound, frozen dew when it gives up at on the fire escape landing. We lock eyes with gold fake sunflowers on a vase one of us will want to take when we disperse. Go on. On the field, a touchdown. Blessed gold t-shirts run across. We resist our urge to save food. Our lives have begun. On Jerome Avenue, an abyss of clouds like colored wigs. Okay.
Wow. All right, now we get to all join Silvia back on the screen. And I hope that you will all join me in congratulating these poets on these beautiful readings tonight. Such distinct voices and so many different forms that we're hearing, but Ben was calling out some threads in the chat of aspects of the spiritual. I'm hearing a sort of willingness to look unflinchingly at aspects of life that we all experience and the sometimes brutality of nature, and just really, really loving your words tonight. Thank you so much for these readings. I will kick us off with a couple questions. I do appreciate the folks who are adding their questions to the Q&A, so we'll make sure we get to those as well. I know that each of you has a kind of a unique connection to Emily Dickinson, and thank you so much for referencing her tonight in your readings and kind of bringing her into the room with us. Can you maybe each just tell us how she came into your life and why she stuck?
I will start. Well, I was taking classes undergrad at the new school, and I was taking classes for fiction, which I started taking fiction first. And I met the very, very wonderful Catherine Barnett, who was my teacher, my poetry teacher. And she introduced me to Emily Dickinson, which before that I had never read anything from there. And I just fell in love with the saying and not saying thing that she has, like that contradicting. I fell in love with the brevity of uh, of her work, of her poems, and okay, nobody can be Emily Dickinson, but like you learn a lot from that. So the there's always what I like, what I felt compelled about her poetry is that it seems like for me, this is my like her own private discussion of the world, and one side of her mind is saying this, and the other side of her mind is saying something else. But she has this ability to see the nature and the world. She had this ability to see nature and the world like living, really living things, part of everything that we do, part of not only inspiration, but like characters almost. She has a line in one poem. I don't, I can't say it now, but it says like something about words in a poem. No matter how, something like, no matter how much the word doesn't wanna wait in, it does have a weight. Something like that. Yeah, well, she said it better, but yeah, that was my experience with Emily Dickinson.
For me, I was acquainted with Emily Dickinson's persona way before I had the courage to acquaint myself with her poems. I was acquainted with the Emily Dickinson collection in the Houston Museum at Harvard College. And what really, really struck me is the strangeness of this wild, lush inner world that's kept at such a distance on one hand and with such vulnerability and openness at the same time. And I'm saying this solely based on observation of the objects that the museum showed students from Emily Dickinson's life. I'm thinking about pieces of recipes, little trinkets, but I only had the courage to start reading Emily Dickinson once Lucy Brock Broido, my beloved poetry teacher, confessed that she did not know how to read Emily Dickinson at first and waited for Marie Howe to teach her. And then what really, really grabbed me is, I guess, taking liberties with the spiritual, faith and doubt, and maybe the privacy and the permanency that Dickinson uses writing to reach.
Yeah, I really love what both of you just said about Dickinson. I'm from Connecticut originally, so I think having her there as this woman, New England poet, and like you said, Avia too, she was, she's such a figure. So before you really know her work at all or intimately, it's just this presence there in literature. But I think like for a lot of people, she became like a poetry patron saint for me, or like this patron saint of the artistic life, and of just this vast independent spirit, as well. And I think I fell in love with her more in her letters actually than her poetry.
Mm.
And the just the strange and interesting and so like unique vo poetic voice in those letters. But it's also interesting too because, unlike the most of the poems, the letters have recipients and people that she was really close to, that she was sharing herself with and this vulnerability that you spoke to, Avia, but also with this distance or this playfulness or this riddle like quality. Um, but I feel like there's an earnestness and like a person capable of real feeling there too, and you can feel that spirit on the page as well. And like you said, Sylvia, all these different things at once, like very dynamic, this vastness.
I really love how each of you is sort of expressing, like Avia and Sylvia, whether it was through a teacher who kind of brought you on this journey or sent you on this journey, or Carlene through the nature of sort of being a New Englander, like you're calling on a poetic lineage here, and I see the attention to the interior that you were citing, Avia. Um, in that Dickinson so embodies in all of your work. Um, so, how do you, as poets, maintain that ability to explore the interior in a world that is so very loud?
I think for me, I spend a lot of time empathizing. I empathize with, and that's also because of upbringing, right? Like I grew up in a country that has nothing to do with how things are done here. I grew up in Ecuador, in Guayaquil, which is a small city. So it's like when I was growing up, was very communal. I mean, there you have your family, uncles, aunts, cousins, and there's always a grandma who teaches you about earth, like uh, leaves and plants and stuff like that. Um, um, I'm going in circles here, but sorry, remind me the question again. Sorry, I went ahead of myself.
I think you're headed in the right direction, Sylvia. But how do you maintain space for the way that you express your poetry, which is so incisive and probing of the interior life, the life of the mind and the experience. How do you maintain that when there's just so much noise in the world? There's just so much going on around us.
Well, I think it has to do with creation. That helps me a lot. It helps me to put down, whatever feelings I'm feeling, however I see in the world, or whatever happened that is very mundane and common to everyone. But there's something even in the common and the mundane that has like an aspect of surprise, right? We have not all lived everything that there is to live, even in our mundane tasks and everything. So there's always a mystery, if you want to find it, like a new way of seeing things, even the most mundane things, like life surprises you every day. And I think I think about those things a lot, and I make questions about things like that, or questioning myself, or question the process, or question you know, I keep questioning everything. So that helps me a lot.
For me, one way to keep um, attending to that inner world, despite the noises, is asking other poets how they attend to their inner world. So thank you, Silvia, for that. And thank you, Brooke, for asking that question. I mean, I think I found that no matter what I do, those noises infiltrate the poetry. And maybe the task that I find most challenging is to make sure that those noises infiltrate the poetry in a productive way, where there's room for curiosity and discovery and questioning, what does this mean? Where is there room for us to think deeper and maybe change some things around us for the better, rather than these noises coming in and paralyzing us? And God knows I've been paralyzed for long stretches of time at a time. But I think that one thing that really helps is turning to other poets and other writers and other artists' words. And reading for me is that, just like writing, is that exercise in patience, especially in the digital age where so many things are very fast-paced and very short-lived, very transient. Reading books of poems and reading craft essays really slows me down and gives me permission to enter that deeper space that I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, I think the act of writing claims that space, and writing feels like a very free space to me. So whether like I decide to share something or publish it, that's like another question. But in feeling somewhere like, oh, I might not be like allowed to think or say this thing, or like especially if we're feeling like, censorship widespread, like in this moment, writing feels very free, but then the decisions about what happens afterward, that those can be considered. But in sitting down to write, and then I also write a lot on paper, and that is much slower than if I'm typing. So it helps me to enter this other space where time can slow down, and I'm not, not having this onslaught of voices and other things coming from the world for at least a little while.
Yeah, I love that. Like what to do once you've stopped writing, once you put the pen down. What choices lay before you? And all of you have debut collections that are coming out in or have just come out, but or are coming out in the next several months, and that's very very exciting. So, what is this moment like where you're waiting to present something to the world that has maybe formerly only been for you or a small circle?
Um, I don't believe it yet. I mean, like, it's exciting. It's exciting. I go over the sometimes over, the manuscript, and I want to correct certain things, but it's done. It's gone. It doesn't belong to me anymore, and it's gonna be out for everybody to enjoy it. So at some point it comes the obsession is like Emily Dickinson's obsession with her writing, right? Like she over, I think a lot of overthinking and a lot of uh, I always felt like with Emily it's like a nervousness kind of writing, like so eager to say everything that she observes, and uh, I stopped looking at the manuscript, I mean, like my pages, and I just let it go. But very excited. I'm very proud of that collection, and I hope everybody likes it when it comes out and buys it mostly. That's the trick part. That's the tricky part, to have people buying your book.
Yeah, I can answer briefly because mine feels so far away. It's only coming out next year. And in my mind, the book is not done. In my mind, I'm still writing it, and I kind of made peace with the fact that I'll always still be writing it. It's just that it might be, you know, aggregated into a physically separate collection. But I think I've lived long enough with my obsessions and my demons to know that they're not going anywhere. They're just going to stick to the next pages that become available to me. So maybe peace making peace with the incompleteness of the process and the ongoing work is something I'm thinking about and will continue to think about.
And mine is here, as Avia showed everyone. Officially here. And it's yeah, now's, the time to share. It was about a year between finding out and it being here, and I really enjoyed that interim period. And this is a different kind of joy, and now that people are starting to read it and receive it, and it does feel it feels like it is an entity outside of myself that has its own life going on. But I've been using the term, so it mostly feels joyful, but I've also been using the term vulnerability hangover lately, which I don't think I ever had used before. So there's also a bit of that there as well. But mostly
Yeah.
excited to share. Yeah.
I don't think anyone could blame you for feeling that sense of vulnerability when, as Sylvia put it, you're sort of producing something that maybe won't belong to you anymore, which I think is such an interesting way of thinking about that. And Casey in the audience Q&A has a question along these lines. So she's saying all of your poems have really resonated for her. What kind of emotional connection do you hope to make with your readers? Has that emotional connection changed over time for you?
For me, because I'm writing in this, my chapbook was really like personal, more. This book is touching themes of migration, separation of families, like my parents came here, we stayed with my grandmother, things like that. Those things those are recurring topics, I guess, worldwide, and most so like most now. And okay. Could you just repeat the question again, because I lost my thought? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Just anything else about the emotional connection that
Yeah.
that you hope that your readers might feel.
Well,
That you want to make.
the emotional connection is that the book is written by someone who, let's say, don't look at Silvia writing this book. Although I am the author, I wrote the poems, but I think it's a something else is behind that, right? It's all the memories, all the memories, the circumstances, good or bad circumstances, your loyalty to. That's how I started writing the book. The loyalty for the memories I have of someone, for my family members who work very hard to have us here, and for my grandma who stayed with us, and just people who along the way took care of us when my parents couldn't do that. That's relevant today, and it's going to be relevant all, for generations and generations and everywhere, because people migrate for different circumstances. Families get separated, or parents die, whatever, so that attachment is there because there's biography in there. And there's not everything is biographical, but most of it is. And that, if it's not me in particular, this family I know. And so there's always gonna be a person. It doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to whoever wants to buy it. But in my spirit and in my head, I never forget why I wanted to write that. And So I hope it transcends in some way, you know.
And Sylvia, I can't help think that both you and I write in English, even though
Yes.
it's not necessarily our first tongue. And I'm thinking about what you're saying and transcending, reaching a readership in some, I don't know if to say universal, but human.
Human connection, yes, some kind of human connection.
Yeah, what you said resonates with me in terms of distance from family, distance from the place we grew up in, and what that distance, linguistic and geographical distance, allows us to see and to inquire into. And I was born in Israel and I was raised in Israel, and it feels really, really scary to be a human right now, also to be a writer and also to be an Israeli writer. And my biggest hope, and the reason I turn to other writers' works is to transcend those polarizing narratives. For a long time, I didn't think that poetry has to be political, and I keep changing my mind on that. And nowadays, I think maybe it's impossible to read something without some veil of some politics somewhere around in the room. And so I'm thinking about what you said, Sylvia, with humanizing our experiences. And tragically, there is enough pain to go around in the world, and there are so many differently complex types of pain. I don't think that poetry has to be about pain, but if pain, memory, inquiry goes into it, I hope there's room for all of it, and that poetry is vast enough to hold all of it.
Well said, yes.
Yeah, I love that. I feel very like it's out of my hands when someone else has it. So I don't know that there's like a particular connection I'm wanting or hoping to forge. I hope someone gets something out of it that feels life affirming. Um, and that like it's a meaningful activity for them to read it or spend time with it. I when thinking of the dedication, I knew it wasn't for like a particular person and I didn't have that, but I really thought for a while like who is this for? And the dedication is for you, like whoever ends up reading it, that's who it's for. And yeah, it took me a while to come to that and kind of or find out what was true. Um, because the act of writing the work itself is for me, but then the desire to share it after is for whoever it comes to. Yeah.
Well, that's a gift. That's a gift to us all. Since we're coming to the end of our time together, but there are a couple really good questions remaining. I'm gonna take a version of one of these questions and ask each of you, would you maybe just name one writer or artist or musician or artwork that has accompanied you on the journey toward your debut book?
I have a couple. I think at the beginning of writing, I used to write this very like up in the air poems, like very abstract poems. And reading Ada Limon really helped me process my thoughts a little bit more. That make them more accessible. It's not the because her poetry is not accessible. It's just but make it more so they can really connect, I guess, with the reader. What I was writing was existed in my mind more than it existed in my memories and than on the paper. When I put it on the paper, I wanted to be so abstract at the beginning. and then I little by little, I had to like confess a little bit more or say something more to make it more accessible for people. So I'll say Ada Limon. I used to read a lot of Russian poets as well. Translated, I left those books back in my country, but I used to read that a lot. And the I guess that's it.
A great answer. Ada is our outgoing National Poet Laureate. Ada.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it feels impossible to give one name because I'm always reading a few poetry books simultaneously, and I always have that one book that I just carry it with me for weeks. Right now, it's Carlene's book and also Saints of Little Faith by Megan Pinto that is here on my desk. But if I have to name one of the first poets that I felt like I discovered her, and I just couldn't understand how did she do that? How did she produce these poems? That book is Tracy Brimhall. I read one of her poems in the Best American Poetry in 2013. I've never heard her name before, and I just read that one poem by her, and I had to look her up and read everything that she'd written up until that point, and I still wonder, how does she do that? After every poem I read by her. Yeah, but the good news is that I feel that way about a lot of other poets, and every few weeks it's another obsession, and I love these obsessions because they teach me so much. And usually it's women poets. This is the way it happens for me.
Tell us Tracy's last name one more time.
Tracy Brimhall.
Brimhall. Okay. All right. Now we can all go look up Tracy Brimhall together. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not just saying this because we're at the Emily Dickinson Museum, and those who know me out here know, but definitely Dickinson for me is a big guiding poetic spirit, patron saint of poetry for a long time. And in more recent years, this is not a writer, but an artist, but Hilma F. Klint has become that kind of presence for me. And even more recently than that, Hildegard von Bingen as a figure. So I'd say the spirits of all three, but Dickinson is definitely the longest reigning.
Yeah, that's quite a range of people to pull on. I really love that from all different moments in time. Oh man, it's just been so lovely to talk with you all and hear your work. I hate to see it end, but we're at time. So I think I'll draw us to a conclusion. I want to thank this evening's amazing poets, Carlene Kucharczyk, Avia Tadmor, and Silvia Bonilla. Thank you so much, you three, for being with us and kicking off our series this year. I think you were the perfect group to do that. And I want to thank you, all of our listeners out there. I hope you'll go online to learn more about these poets and check out their work and stay tuned for those new books coming our way. We will be back next month for another Phosphorescence reading, and when we will hear from Joy Layden, Nina Polari, and Joan Larkin. In the meantime, if you're able to travel to Amherst, do come visit us on May 10th. When May 10th, we will be commemorating the anniversary of Dickinson's death with our annual poetry walk, where we read her work at sites of significance across Amherst, and we end beside her grave where we lay daisies and have a lemonade toast. And we would just love to see you there. So we'll put a link to that in the chat. And then to learn about those events, to subscribe to our newsletter, to make a donation to the museum in support of free programs like this, you can visit us at emilydickinsonmuseum.org. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good night. Take good care of yourself.
I wanna say quickly, May 10 is my birthday.
Oh, well then, Silvia, you gotta make a trip to Amherst.
That will be my birthday gift.
We would love to see you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who connected to hear us. And thank you for hosting us. Thank you, Carlene, for inviting us.
The convener. Thank you,
Thank
Carlene.
you, Avia.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.